We have spent a good 5 minutes learning and understanding about HTML and CSS. In this episode, we will be creating your first website. Finally, we will be covering a few important concepts as we go. Just a warning, this episode might cause rapid hair loss. The first thing that we will cover is about the concept of containers or wrappers. When we create a Photoshop file or a Word document, the first thing we do is set the dimensions of the document, be it in A4, A3, or in pixels. We then design within that document. In HTML, we use containers to specify the dimensions of our HTML page and to center the page. We use CSS to set the width of the container and to center it within the page. The container will hold all of our other HTML elements, and therefore we can center all of the page content by just centering that one container element rather than centering and positioning every single element one by one. The second concept is about the role of CSS positioning in making the layout of the page. You might remember stacking up alphabet blocks as a child. In your HTML page, you have one element after another, and they also stack up on top of each other from the top down. One thing you cannot do as a child is to give these blocks properties that could defy the laws of gravity. There are 4 position properties that we can use: static, relative, absolute, and fixed. The static and relative properties work like the alphabet blocks. They stack as you would have expected. As a child, we will get bored of stacking the blocks on top of each other over and over again, and that's when we start to shift the blocks around. This is where we use the relative positioning to move the blocks around, relative to its original stacking position. The best thing is that we can move the boxes left, right, up, or down without worrying about offending Newton from breaking his laws of gravity. The absolute positioning acts like a very, very strong Velcro strip. You can put it anywhere within the HTML page and it won't affect or be affected by other elements in the page. You can also put it within another HTML element and you can position it anywhere within that element. Something like Inception, a div inside a div. The fixed positioning is like a sticker we paste on our computer screen. It is always at and stays where we position it, even if we scroll up or down the page. The third concept is about the role of CSS floats in making a page layout. We know that div tags work like a block and stacks on top of each other in a single column. We use CSS floats to make multi-column layouts because floating elements sit side by side and not on top of each other. To understand this concept, think of the blocks as 4 superheroes queuing up: Batman, Superman, Superwoman, and Robin. Superman and Superwoman would like to queue side by side and talk in private. Although they are superheroes that can fly and float in the air, they still have to obey the rules and stay within the queue area. So in order for them to be side by side, Superman will have to float up to the left in order to give space for Superwoman to move up and float to the right of Superman, while still staying within the queue area. Logically, Robin will want to move up the queue as there is now an empty space available in front of him. But obviously, Robin just wants to get closer to Batman. However, since Superman and Superwoman are actually still queuing, Robin will have to move back and clear the space where Superman and Superwoman are queuing and floating at. This is where we use the CSS clear property to clear the area after floating something so that the other elements know that the space is still taken by the floating elements. And this is how we use CSS floats to create multi-columns layout. However, please note that your divs are not actually really floating or flying because they are not Superman. With the understanding of the containers, the CSS positioning, and the float properties, we are ready to make our first website. Click on the link below to start your live coding tutorial.